Hi, I'm Chuck Yeager. You know, I really enjoy the wild outdoors where I love to hunt and fish. Now, for many years, I've shared these experiences with a good friend of mine, George Bush. And I can tell you firsthand that President Bush shares our love of the land. A few days ago, President Bush held an unrehearsed, informal discussion with fellow outdoor enthusiasts where he discussed the responsible use and enjoyment of our nation's most valued inheritance, the great outdoors. Now, this is just one of the many good things he has done as president. I think you understand why I'm supporting George Bush.
An informal group joins with President George Bush in an unrehearsed discussion of the responsible use and enjoyment of our nation's most valued inheritance, the great outdoors.
On this beautiful day, it is most fitting and appropriate that we talk about the environment with the emphasis on those that like the outdoors and believe in multiple use and believe in fishing and believe in hunting and believe in camping, and I do, and my family does. Not only do I feel a sense of obligation to stewardship of the parks and of the wilderness and of the great outdoors, but I also feel a sense of stewardship towards American families that are trying to work for a living. And to achieve a balance between growth and the environment is something that I think every president ought to feel an obligation to achieve.
From new national parks to the protection of our scenic rivers, the accomplishments of the Bush administration are unmatched. The president has demonstrated an unprecedented commitment to preserving our nation's greatest assets through the appropriations process, protecting our forests, streams, and open spaces. Indeed, under George Bush's leadership, the nation has doubled its funding for national parks, wildlife conservation, and outdoor recreation, and tripled the funds for states for parks and open space. I think that's a good record. We've increased wetlands protections from $295 million to $812 million since I've been president. Increased funding for, and this comes of great interest to some here, for fisheries management, and $80 million added to that and requested full funding for Wallop Bro. The president is committed to ensuring that these funds are spent only for their original intended purpose. And let me just say here that when you get in Washington, you might have some earmarked funds, but the propensity in the way it works with the Congress is they want to take those earmarked funds and use them for other purposes. And I've stood up against that. Well, I believe that the money ought to be used for what we said it would be used for, and I'm going to keep on fighting for that principle. So that's where we stand. Glad to go for questions. Yes, sir.
Wildlife populations are healthier and more numerous today than they have ever been. There are a few people who would stop hunting on our public lands, hunting and fishing on our public lands, and the wildlife has primarily benefited through funding by these wildlife organizations. Can you tell us what we can expect from your commitment to us as sportsmen as far as hunting and fishing on these public properties?
I will resist any effort to stop hunting and fishing on these public lands, and I really feel strongly about it, and I pride myself on stewardship of our environmental resources, our environment, but I just don't think we can go to the extremes in the name of the environment, either whether it's in this trying to deny hunting or fishing to these areas, or whether it's to shut down businesses that where families are needlessly thrown out of work, and we're trying to find a proper balance, and balance is a key word in all of this. And so I oppose what I consider extremist tactics. I'd rather see sound management through sound sports practice than I would through see some of these herds thinned out through famine and suffering of that kind. And so I will stand with the hunter And I don't think there's anything in sound hunting that is inconsistent with sound environmental policy. Yes, sir.
Past chairman of Ducks Unlimited for Utah, can you tell us a little bit how our no net loss program is working as far as the lands that have been taken and what we're doing to replace those?
Well, we're in a debate, and we're also in a struggle on wetlands. I think we're doing all right. We've added to the wetlands. We're continuing to purchase wetlands. I get into a fight with I think some of the people on the extremes on wetland. I hear from a lot of farmers and a lot of agricultural people who have one little sump on the property for a short period of time, and then they're denied use of that land. We're trying to find a balanced policy, but the underpinning of it, in response to your question, no net loss.
Good morning, Mr. President. I'm here representing Safari Club International, and we as hunters want to ask you, as a hunter, and we as citizens, how can we deal with the people who want to deny us our Second Amendment rights, and how do we answer them properly and keep our amendment safe?
I've had a hunting and fishing license as long as I've been old enough to, and I continue to enjoy sports. But the idea that we should, in the name of the environment, knuckle under to those who really want to tie up these assets and prohibit hunting and fishing is something that I will and have stood up against. I'm going to keep on saying what I believe.
No president in modern times has surpassed George Bush in his commitment, understanding, and devotion to the great outdoors. As an avid fisherman, hunter, and life member of the National Rifle Association, George Bush continues to be a staunch defender of every law-abiding American's Second Amendment rights. George Bush knows we need to get tough with the criminals who give law-abiding gun owners a bad name. That's why he's fought for mandatory sentencing for felons in possession of handguns and for those convicted of stealing firearms. Yes, by protecting the environment and defending the rights of hunters and anglers, President Bush is helping pass on a tradition important to all Americans.
This really is a way that you can strengthen your family. We talk about family values. Anyone who has fished or hunted or hiked or camped with a child knows what I'm talking about. It's so hard to describe, but I feel it so strong.
He is a fisherman. He's a hunter. He loves the outdoors. He's got a heart for what we're doing out there.
I think it's very important when it comes to making decisions that someone knows what they're talking about from the heart, because that's something they love and appreciate.
Our rights to hunt and fish have never been in greater jeopardy, particularly from those who have failed to be good stewards of the land. The stakes are especially high in this year's presidential election. Under Governor Clinton's administration, Arkansas amassed the nation's worst record for the quality of its environmental initiatives. The result has been toxic pollution of the rivers, streams, and air. The clear-cutting of forest lands is a telling example of the difference between President George Bush and Bill Clinton. While President Bush has instituted a phase-out of clear-cutting as a standard practice on federal lands, Governor Clinton has allowed the clear-cutting of Arkansas forest to go virtually unchecked. In just 3 years alone, over 60,000 acres of forest were clear-cut in Arkansas, and there is no end in sight. Yes, the decisions we make today affect not only our lives, but generations to come. George Bush summarized it best when he said that we need to ensure that our children and grandchildren have the same opportunities to enjoy the invigorating, refreshing outdoor recreation that he has been so fortunate to experience. Vote to continue to fight to protect our heritage. Vote for George Bush.